Hello, good day. I am Anderson Joseph and I am the head of the National Guard's Executive Management Team. Today I'll present to you the Board of Examiners on the VING's Virgin Islands National Guard's Emergency Operation Plan. In short, the VING's EOP, which I'll be using as proceeding. Here we have a quick look at our agenda. You can follow along. Start with our promulgation statement signed by Adjutant General Kojo S. Knox Limbacher. The community needs, well, I'll explain what the community will require to make all this happen. I'll then explain how we will include our community into the planning as well. We will go over the risk assessment and then jump right into what the potential risk and hazards may be. Then we're going to list the key resources and capabilities that we're going to need to mitigate or prevent these hazards. And of course, everyone's favorite, budget concerns. How we're going to pay for everything. That's where that comes in. We're going to follow up with the plan exercise, how we're going to actually execute these plans and train in according to HC. And then we're going to jump in the communication plan, because without communicating a plan, we just have a paper or a product with no viewers. And with that product, we'll also need to casually and maintain this plan. So that's where plan maintenance comes from. And of course, we're going to wrap it up with a conclusion. So like I said, we got the promulgation statement. It's a long read, but it's here for your viewing pleasure. And this basically states the purpose of the EOP, which is to prepare the VING for disaster events and coordinate the agencies that will be working together with in case said events were to happen. Give you a little chance to take a look at that. All right. And here we have it. It's the continuation. In the end, we have the man in charge himself, the Adjutant General of the VING, and his statement. Proceed. All right. Including the whole community. Okay. The Virgin Islands National Guard is a federally funded compound that is secluded from the civilian populace. All members of the community are service members who follow the direct orders of the Adjutant General, Major General Kojo S. Knox Limbacher. All members will be informed and in some level of the EOP process, whether it includes the actual planning and development or the training exercises, including the outside partnerships of private companies and other federal government agencies, will be done through invites to the EOP, planning by the Adjutant General and his staff members. In a nutshell, the VING is a small community. Well, we number about 589 right now. And to include that community into this plan, it's not the same as a district or town or city, because within that there's private, there's federal, there's government. No, in the Virgin Islands National Guard and within our community, we all follow one chain of command, we follow one directive, and pretty much it's his say so. So we are technically included regardless if we want to be included or not, since that's our job, that's our career, and like I mentioned earlier, we have a chain of command. Now, when it comes to talking with other agencies, whether it be private sector, federal, governmental, local, uh, tribal communities, we do not have any tribal on the Virgin Islands, or even volunteer. How we're going to include them is by sending them invites, like I mentioned. Any key role members, anyone who plays a role within our EOP, we'll be sure to invite them to training meetings, reviews, actual exercises. Make sure that they're involved, because it does involve them. Okay, moving on. The risk assessment process. When it comes to a hurricane, especially one of high winds seen in category 4 to 5, there are plenty of risks that can arise, not just in the hurricane itself, but even before the event, like in a training phase. Okay, the risk assessment process was led by our own Chief Warrant Officer Byron A. Todman, alongside members of the Adjutant General staff, also guests of different agencies like Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency, Water and Power Authority, Virgin Islands Police Department, Virgin Islands Fire Services, and the Office of Disaster Recovery. We looked at risks starting from the planning phase, which include risks that can occur through field exercises. We then listed the risks that occurred during the hurricane using past hurricane history, and lastly we looked at risks that can occur during the search and rescue, leading up to the recovery phase. So let's tread back a little bit on why we chose those several agencies to be part of the risk assessment, because we also have many other agencies, but we found that these five were the best suited to actually give us the best input within our EOP. We have Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency. It says it right here in his name. These are a local agency that deals with emergency management. These are our go-to. We ask them questions, we do different trainings, meetings, we bounce back ideas. This is our go-to when it comes to emergency management. Water and Power Authority. This is our power company. This is the only one on island for both islands, and they will be assisting us when it comes to uh, running water, electricity. They have many power poles listed all throughout the land. They have wires. So they pose a lot of different threats. So of course we want them to be on board when we're speaking about different risk assessments and whatnot, because their company itself poses a majority of the risk. So they also supposed to supply us with a lot of solutions for said risks. We also have the Virgin Islands Police Department. This goes without saying. We need the police department when it comes to anything like search and rescue, civil unrest, security, patrolling the roads, curfews, and stuff like that. We also have the Virgin Islands Fire Services that we will be needing in case of confined space rescues, in case of any fires, checking different buildings, making sure they're up to code, that they're not causing a fire hazard in the event of a hurricane, anything like that. We have the Office of Disaster Recovery. Now, this office is what pretty much gives us recommendations in the recovery phase of what we should do and how we should go about it. Of course, using history and existing plans and stuff like that. So it makes our job easier once we have the formula and people who has already been through the situation. Moving along. We have potential hazards and threats. Now, the Virgin Island National Guard is subjected to the effects of several disasters, varying widely in type and magnitude from local communities to statewide in scope. Disaster conditions could be a result of several natural phenomena such as earthquakes, floods, severe thunderstorms, high water, epidemics, severe heat, or high winds. Apart from natural disasters, Virgin Islands National Guard is subject to a myriad of other disaster contingencies such as transportation accidents, involving chemicals and other hazardous materials, leaks or pollution problems, utility service interruptions, energy shortages, civil disturbances or riots, terrorism, warfare, applicable criminal acts, or a combination of any of these. Okay, now that's just very general hazards that we can see, but we can always, the risk assessment, hazards, threats, it's a living thing. You can always find more. Like I mentioned, the water and power authority, they're hanging wires, hanging power lines, faulty lines, um, random shooters, drunk drivers. We can go down this road and even to where we mentioned earlier, the training phases. We need to train the exercises that we're going to plan out. We can have people whose ages vary from young to old. Suppose we have someone who's in the 70s who are not that quite nimble and we're doing an evacuation training. And during that training, maybe they trip, or we realize that there wasn't a wheelchair accessible or some handrails, and now they're trying to go down some stairs and they can't. Anything that you can think of, you never ever stop analyzing threats and hazards. Moving along. Key resources and capabilities. Effective prediction and warning systems have been established that make it possible to anticipate center disaster situations that may occur through the jurisdiction or the general area beyond the jurisdiction boundaries. It is assumed that any of disaster contingencies could individually or in combination cause a grave emergency situation within the Virgin Islands National Guard. It is also assumed that these contingencies will vary in scope and intensity from an area in which the devastation is isolated and limited to one that is widely ranging and extremely devastated. For this reason, planning efforts are made as general as possible so that the great latitude is available in their application, considering they could occur in several locations simultaneously. Initial action to mitigate the effects of emergency situations or potential disaster conditions will be conducted as soon as possible by the Virgin Islands National Guard service members. So basically, we're going to use what resources we have, like we have the hurricane watchers, for instance. They're the ones who are going to keep track, locate, identify, and give the community an idea of what to expect when it comes to the hurricane. We have the people who work for the seismology area where they're going to pretty much guesstimate any potential earthquakes and stuff like that. Like I said, with this stuff, you can go on and on. And it's a continuation. I'll let you guys read this for a little bit. We're talking about the assistance to affected jurisdictions, the federal and state disaster assistance when provided, the responsibility of the officials under this plan to save lives, which will be our governor. When a jurisdiction receives a request to assist another jurisdiction, reasonable actions will be taken to provide the assistance as requested. Budget concerns. Now, as you can see, planning, preparing, rehearsing, executing, and maintaining an EOP is not free and comes with its own expenses. We have looked at all of what we need to be funded during this process, which includes catering, office reservations, office supplies, transportation, fuel, equipment, private contractors, personnel and renovation, and repairs. There may be more, but basically these are the borderline of what we need to at least start it, and we know that we have the major components that's going to cost us the most dollars. These are plan exercise. Okay, we're going to be following the guidance of the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program. Okay, this exercise plays a vital role in preparedness. It's a well-designed exercise that provides a low-risk environment to familiarize personnel with roles and responsibilities. Our goal will be to work our way to an FSE, which is a full-scale exercise. The crawl phase will be classes, which encompasses PowerPoints and videos that give the information needed to those who need it. The walk phase will be us physically walking through the steps outlined in our EOP. This way, when we see any alerting or harmful situations that we can address before the full exercise, we can hit it right there. The run phase will simulate a full exercise where everyone should know their roles and what needs to be done. That's very important. Everyone needs to know their role and what needs to be done within their role. We will ensure our exercise will be HC compliant by achieving the element of participant goals. That's our goal. We're trying to get as much as a community, not just the National Guard, but the outside agencies, the federal, the government, everyone who plays a role. We're trying to get as much participants as possible because we find that that is the main key asset when it comes to emergency planning. Having the key players know their role and having everyone, you know, aware of what you can bring to the table and what I can bring to the table and what works well with each other and what doesn't. And we will never realize that until we actually put these plans into motion and train together. Communication plan. A plan is nothing if it doesn't fall into the hands of those who the plan is meant for. Ensuring the community that the EOP is tailored, has knowledge of said EOP, and is as important as creating the EOP itself. The VING community is organic and housed under one umbrella that follows a chain of command, like I mentioned earlier, which is the Adjutant General. In order to communicate this plan to the VING community, first, emails will be sent out to all service members. Next, our Public Information Officer will schedule 3 different dates of town hall meetings where the EOP will be discussed in detail. Lastly, it will be on the commanders of each unit to ensure that their section understands their role and what part they play in the execution of this EOP. This is the plan maintenance. The VING Sergeant Major will be required to review the basic plan and its appendices annually alongside his staff. This will be conducted in 2 phases, the beginning of the new fiscal year with staff, then the ending of the fiscal year with the Sergeant Major and his staff altogether. And these are changes should be made, plans and appendices when then documents are no longer current. Changes in plan documents may be needed when hazard consequences or risk areas change, when the concept of operations or emergency changes, when departments, agencies, or groups that perform emergency functions are reorganized and could no longer perform the emergency tasks laid out in the planning documents. All of this is going to require us to update, revise, or change the plan. When warning and communicating systems change, when additional emergency resources are obtained through acquisition or agreement, the disposition of existing resources changes, or anticipated emergency resources are no longer available. When a training exercise or an actual emergency reveals significant deficiencies in existing planning documents, when a state, territorial, or federal planning standards for the documents are revised, or when directed by the Adjutant General or Joint Staff with the approval of the Adjutant General. Now, these are the methods of actually updating these plans, okay? First, we have a revision, and these are the requirements that must be met that will prompt a revision. When 10 or more pages need updating, when 10 or more pages with critical information must be deleted, when 10 or more pages need substantial information added, or the word processing program originally used is no longer available. Now there is a formal change, and these are the requirements to conduct a formal change. When less than 10 pages need updating, when less than 10 pages with critical information must be deleted, when less than 10 pages need substantial information added. We're going to continue with the conclusion. Okay, so in conclusion, the VING community in this instance of a Cat 4 to 5 hurricane will need resources that will allow them to prepare, endure, and rebuild after the disaster. We will include the whole community in the planning process by using direct command from the Adjutant General, sending out formal requests to other key role parties, which includes private sector, the federal or government agencies, and we will also have the Chief Warrant Officer lead the risk assessment process alongside key members of outside organizations that play a role in the VING EOP. Hazards and threats identified are but not limited to high winds, flooding, projectile debris, contaminated supplies, and civil disturbances. The key resources that can help prevent or mitigate these hazards are hurricane watchers, security, emergency sirens, windproof shutters, doors, and etc. And being able to fund these meetings that will take place to discuss the EOP. Also fund the equipment needed for training and real-world purposes. Our major concern when it comes to exercise and meeting the HC principles is meeting participant goal, ensuring all of our key roles take part in the training. We will communicate the EOP via email, in-person meetings. Sometimes we'll even use Teams if the parties are not able to be there in presence, and by word of mouth from superior to subordinate. Maintenance will be spearheaded by the Sergeant Major and the Chief Warrant Officer. Both will review to see if the plan needs any revisions or plan change. Any questions? Hearing no questions, these are my references.